Hello, everybody. I'm Meredith, and I'm with the Brahma Kumaris meditation on Facebook with Conversation with Friends. And I have a new friend tonight, and I'm really delighted to introduce you to her because she's amazing. And you're going to see it in 1 second when you hear her start to talk. On the heavier side here, we are living in a world where there is just so much sorrow and grieving, sadness, just an inability to accept what's happened in the world and maybe not even to be able to move on as things do improve. Now, Meg Nocero is one who is on a mission. She's truly on a mission to help those who are in need of some kind of support, some kind of guidance when it comes to whatever it is that they're going through, the grieving process. Maybe it's not the heavy grieving process, but it's an experience of sadness or just not being able to get through a day or days. And she knows this very well, because she's been through it herself. So I just want to introduce you to somebody who is really, really committed to creating change in people's lives and really turning their lives around. So here she is, Meg. And I'm so delighted to have you here because I've heard so much about you and I've gotten to talk with you. And I just think, this is what's really needed today. So I think that I wanted to start with your own life, which is really what your book is about. And your book is, here it is, let me see, Butterfly Awakens. And I hope that people can see that. And this book has the story, this personal story, the advice of Meg. Meg, maybe we should start with how it all did start, right? Because your life was pretty good. You were an attorney, a prosecuting attorney. You are married, 2 little children. I mean, to most people, that would be pretty good, right?
Yeah.
And something happened along the way, something to do with your family, and just kind of changed your life. So maybe you could just describe what happened, and then we can talk more.
This is great. I want to say, first of all, that I always am attracted to the light of others. And definitely, Meredith, you are a bright light in this world. So thank you so much for the honor and privilege of being on your show with all the wonderful community that you bring into your world. Where did my story begin as far as the struggle, the joy? I have to say that, when I found out my mother had breast cancer in 2000, it was actually when I was pregnant with my daughter. I was about 7 months pregnant with my daughter. We were all excited. I had just gotten over a huge hump of morning sickness. I had what they call gravidaris, hypermesis gravidaris. It was terrible. I could not keep my head up half the time. So she was nursing me. My mother had come down here to take care of me. And, she left, and, I was feeling better. I was getting through those last days, and I got that phone call, and it knocked me to my knees. And reality is, when you hear that someone you love has the C word or cancer, let's say, and, it's shocking because you never really truly believe it's going to come close to you.
Yeah. We all know that anything can happen to us at any moment.
Right.
But my own experience has been what you're saying, is that in a sense, until it happens to you, you don't know. You really don't know. You can't know another person's pain. But you were extremely close with your mother, and I wouldn't use the word dependent upon your mother, but she was part of your support system in your life, wasn't she?
Oh, absolutely. My mother raised her daughters, because I'm one of 3 girls, to be strong, independent women. Go out, do your thing, get educated. 2 lawyers and a doctor in our family. No woman would ever be sitting by the wayside and waiting for their turn. You need to step up and ask for what it is that you want in this life. But the reality was, when I got to be of the adult age, when I had my own career going as a lawyer, and I really did depend on her every morning to start my day, because when you find someone that makes you happy and you're attracted to someone that brings light into your life, you really start to say that this is something I never want to lose. it's kind of like when you meet someone for the first time and you just feel good about yourself. Somehow that person infuses your life with something of possibility and beauty. That was my mother for me. And that was my mother for many people, to be quite honest with you. But I had the privilege of being her daughter. So, yes, I will say I grew more dependent on her because I always thought that I would have that laid into my life. I didn't think she would leave this world at 67. I thought I had a lot more time to peruse the world and get curious about the things that showed up on the daily. I used to say that right now what I'm doing in this world would never have happened had she still, has she beaten cancer, because I had her and I didn't need to have conversations with other people. I had her. And that was very amazing. And I don't take a day of that for granted. And at the same time, her gift in her passing was to give me a voice to help others, which I really believe, by using the vulnerability of my story, which, is painful at the same time. I feel compelled to do so, and not in a boastful way, because nobody wants to share their pain with the world, through ego. It's really kind of like, I want to help someone who was sitting in the situation that I was when I felt the darkness overwhelm me when she passed away.
So let's talk about the darkness, what you began to experience. Now, you started to experience it before she passed away, right? The anxiety,
Right.
depression. I mean, it got pretty bad, didn't it?
Well, I will say this. I would do things in my world, and I knew my mother was praying for me. So I was like, nothing can happen to me. I mean, she's got my back, and she would always tell me, I'll pray for you. We've got you. Don't worry. Don't be in fear. And it really kept my anxiety at bay. And I am a very anxious person. I'll be honest with you. I couldn't watch a horror movie without actually bringing it home to me. After I would considerably think that is the reality that I lived in. So I had to be really careful of what I brought into my world, those visuals, because I really am a visual person. And it comes, if you are a good writer or you're a good movie teller, it comes to life. So that being said, yes, I am a very anxious person. I had to do a lot of work on myself growing up because of my sensitivities, very empathetic as well to others. I took on a lot of others' emotions and feelings because, in that, in my need to understand the people that I love, I would feel what they felt. And that's really kind of challenging if you're out in the world, kind of like doing your thing when everything is happening. So she was kind of a touch base. I would touch base with her. She would keep me grounded, and I could do the things that I wanted to do in my world until I didn't have it any longer. And that I fell apart. I did fall apart. I will be honest. I may have not seemed that way to the world because I'm a professional. I have obligations. I have responsibilities. I took those seriously. I showed up in the world, but I was dying inside. And that's really kind of difficult. And there's always going to be a peaking point. Your body can't handle it.
Interesting, because you were so strong, as you say, so successful in so many ways. And like you say, on the surface, everything was fine. And it's probably, that's the way it is when we meet lots of people. We really don't know people's stories, do we? We don't know what people are going through. So your entire world fell apart. And even, there's a part in the book where you say that you actually would, I guess, come home from work and just hide in your closet. You just couldn't even, what were you doing? Cocooning yourself, getting away from everything. And so you were really, really suffering. What was your first step? What did you do? Did you go for therapy? Did you go, was it psychology? Was it a psychiatrist? What happened at the beginning until you moved along on?
My first step was hanging out in my closet crying every day, to be quite honest. I had a very dear friend who's very close to me. She sent me a dragonfly lamp, and I put the dragonfly lamp in my closet. So I felt like her light was still there with me. And I used that as a kind of a safe, sacred space. Like some people have altars in their homes that they go to, and they can lay their prayers in front of, or lay their, angst or their fears or anything in front of their hurts. I did that there. I had a whole pictures of my mother around the altar in my closet.
Really?
And I started there, but I was willing to go numb as well, Meredith. I was willing to, you know, okay, this is the way it's going to be. And I would cry every day. And then I would just kind of like just be numb to the world. I was not really expecting that joy factor to come back again. I didn't think that I was going to be able to laugh again. And I had really young kids. So ultimately that was something I couldn't believe, first of all, that this was life. This is what I was going to have to do. And at the same time, I didn't know how to manage it until I did start to get tinnitus, which was very interesting because it's, if anyone experienced or tinnitus, that ringing in your ear
Yeah,
where your nervous
I
system
know
actually,
about it. I don't, yeah, yeah.
it's a wake-up call and you can't really escape yourself. It's a wake-up call. I had burnt out my nervous system, and because I got terrified as well. I remember my anxiety was high, my fears were high. I saw my mother pass away. I experienced that. And the reality was, I truly believe that, oh my God, if something like that could happen to her, and she takes care of herself and she's so good and she's such a wonderful person, then what's left for all of us? What's left for me? And the reality is I was getting a lot of visuals, that death was, I was terrified. And then my anxiety attacks started because they had happened before my mother passed away, but they got worse after. And I literally had to control, like I didn't know how. I mean, if you have an anxiety attack, your heart rate goes crazy and you just don't understand what's happening. You think you're having a heart attack, but the reality is that you're just experiencing just trauma all over again. And it was terrifying. So I, at one point in time, looked at my children and realized I can't do to them what I'm experiencing now by losing my mother. I did not want to leave my kids, 2 and 8 years old, alone. So with all of this happening, I started to reach out for help and start asking others to help me, which my angels on earth showed up for me. So gratefully, because some of the stuff that actually happened, it was messy. Someone said the other day, find the message in the mess, right? And I really had a mess unfolding because, everybody wanted me. They willed me to go back to normal again. But, anyone who's gone through great loss in their life knows that it may be a new normal, but you're going to have to figure out what that looks like for you. And I wasn't gentle. I was ready. Why can't I get over this? Why can't I go back to me again? And it just wasn't. I did not feel like myself. And that's when I started reaching out. And the first person I reached out to was someone who's a therapist. And she said to me, you have to figure out ways to connect with your mother still, because she's not gone, just physically not here any longer.
So you really made the decision that you were going to do something. I mean, a lot of people suffer and they go through the pain, and there are people that will tell them, and I've heard this, that, oh, this is normal, the grieving process, and this is normal, it'll go away. But in a long time, if you don't do something. So I think one of your messages in your amazing book, because you tell a story that it's like almost, I don't want to say a mystery story, but you just want to keep reading it. I want to keep reading it. And the way you write is just beautiful and so deep and spiritual. And so you really decided you were gonna work on yourself, right? You weren't gonna just wait for it to get better, hopefully.
Well, it says no gate. I had those no negotiations with God, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you helped me pull myself out of this, and I promise you that I will give back the gifts of transformation to others. And I had always wanted to write a book. I just never knew what it was going to be. I personally like I'm a big movie fan. I like to go to the movies and be like brought into the story of, oh my God, this is wonderful. I love to feel happy. And, the romances or whatever. I love that stuff. There's always that, dramatic arc, and you're like, no, come on. You want to cheer the heroine or hero on. But I didn't ever think it was going to be like this. This is like this story, I didn't think it was going to be this story. But, it's funny because I was like, well, I am invested in this story. I'm invested in my life. I started having questions around, why are we here? What's my purpose? What's my calling? And the reality is I wanted to somehow figure out what makes me come alive. And one of the things that I always fell back on was inspiration, breathing life into your world, right? What brings you life? What brings you into an experience where we get to connect at a place of possibility and hope? And right there, I was like, I made a contract, like the lawyer and me. I like, you take me through here, and I will follow every instinctive hit I get, and every calling, even if it's hard. Again, it got hard, even if it's hard.
So through all of this depression and all of what you were going through, anxiety attacks and the tinnitus, you began to move forward to help others. I mean, that's what I'm getting from you, is that you began to know that you had a higher purpose, something more than your career and your family, and that's all important. But there was something pulling you almost into something even beyond all of that.
I will have to say, I'm getting goosebumps right now. It was pulling me. That is exactly what happened, Meredith. I've never heard anyone say that to me. It was pulling me. A vision was pulling me into my life, into what it is that I wanted to see unfold. It wasn't what I had. So the reality is this cannot live in the same house together, where I am and where I want to be. And that's terrifying too, because I put 20 years into a career, that's a lot of time. It's like, oh God, I put a lot of, my identity into a place, my, a lot of us, come to a certain point of our lives that our careers become who we are. And the reality is that wasn't me. That wasn't me. It was probably one of the greatest roles I've ever played in my life, if I'm considered to be an actor, right? We all show up in our different roles, but it was no longer the me I wanted to be. So I did feel pulled. And I guess in that contractual negotiation with my higher self, I said, lead me, lead me. And I had a real struggle with faith when my mom died, because hers was so strong. And I was really, really, truly believing that she would get a miracle. Like somehow her life would be the miracle, that she came back from this, this brink of death. And she came back to tell and share a story with everyone that God is good. But she always believed it anyway. God is good. God is good. And, we always said to my kids, they would chant, God is good all the time, God is good. And it's interesting because I did not think so. I did not think so at all. And I didn't really believe. I was like, how can I have faith in something that let my mother down? And the reality is if we all, like, I love the Rumi quote, live life as if everything is rigged in your favor. That spoke to me. The universe is unfolding exactly as it should. That spoke to me. And in addition, I was like, follow your bliss. That was the thing, that Joseph Campbell's quote, that was pulling me, right? That pull. And
that's a lot of different, that's really a lot right there. A lot of incredible quotes and, kind of helping you along to experience, this really your own self-transformation through the suffering. So did you start to feel less? Like, did you find that you were starting to feel better as time went on pretty quickly, or was it a pretty long process?
I would say it was a long process. I think the initial, I will tell you this, the amount of love that was poured into my life by people who showed up for me when I needed them most. I think it's like generosity of spirit. When you give, you receive. It's that whole, that karmic circle of life and love. And a lot of people did show up. Like, one of the most amazing people was the woman who's a massage therapist, and tinnitus is a lot of, the stress or the pressure. And she would come, like, if I was having a horrible time because it got really loud. And, if you talk about it to people with severe tinnitus, it is maddening. It's like someone screaming in your head and you can't sleep. I had insomnia. I was like the night of the Walking Dead, literally me walking around at 3 o'clock in the morning, just like, what am I going to do? This cannot be my life. And then people do have suicidal ideations with regard. I was like, I can't live like this. I can't, but I had people like holding my hand saying to me, you can do this. You can do that. We're going to help you. And there were different ways. I had wonderful healers who came into my life. I did not want to take any kind of antidepressants or anti-anxiety. So that was really important to me that I get help, though. Still, I didn't do it on my own. I can't tell you that I did it on my own. We never do anything on our own.
No, how can we? How
do
we?
you?
Totally. So you had a whole community of helpers, angels that came
Yes.
into your life, and I want to say just bit by bit, things started to change. And as you write in your book, you had realizations. I want to say, well, something else is that you also did a lot of journaling, which I'm wondering how important was the fact that you were a very serious journalist, not journalist, but one who journals. And how important was that in terms of your healing, along with all of these other healers?
Yeah. So one of the most important thing about the journaling process for me, and there were like many different wonderful books I read, like Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, and all of these wonderful opportunities to get recreative with yourself, like to recreate the vision of what the life you want. And I read like a maniac. I read so many books. The journaling was amazing because every time I journaled in the morning, I shared my insights with people in my life who I thought would enjoy what I was learning, because I was learning so much that I turned around and I shared what I was learning with other people, and they were inspired, and they would come back to me and say, thank you so much, Meg, I needed to hear this, or something to that effect. So it turned into my first book, The Magical Guide to Bliss. It was the whole process of channeling what my mother would have told me that I would need to hear on any given day to take me to the next step. Because, I think we all try to jump to the end. Like, when am I going to get better? When is this going to be over? When am I going to do this? And the reality is like, it's increments, right? We look back now on 2 years ago and we're like, wow, how did I get here? I came so far. But if we are moving in increments, small baby steps, that is basically how I journaled into my life again. I wrote into my life again. I wrote the stories that I wanted to, and also the experience. I put it on the page.
So speaking of experience, I think that we definitely need to bring up a very powerful experience that you had in your life, which had to do with a pilgrimage, which interests me very much because I just have always been drawn to this idea of spiritual pilgrimages. And you took one, right? So tell us about it.
So one of the authors that I followed, or I read voraciously at the outset, was Paulo Coelho, and he wrote a book called The Pilgrimage. And when I was reading The Pilgrimage, I was like, I never had contemplated before hiking anything, to be quite honest with you. And I was like, I want to have a spiritual encounter like this. I want to experience a journey like this. And he walked us in his book through El Camino de Santiago in Compostela, Spain, right? So I started walking in my life before I started on the Camino, once those first seeds were planted in my mind that there might be something pulling me, I'll use your words, Meredith, pulling me to Spain to discover why I needed to go there. And interestingly enough, I'll tell you the origin story was when my mother passed away, I closed my eyes, I was praying over her, and I saw a lighthouse. And at the lighthouse, there was a blue sky, and then it turned white, and I felt her say, let me go. But for whatever reason, the image of the lighthouse stayed with me. And I was like, I have to find the lighthouse. I was like, that's a little nudge. You got to find the lighthouse. So interestingly enough, at the end of El Camino is Finisterre. It's where this world meets the next. It is traditionally known where the people in the 8th century thought that, that was where the other world, the veil between here and there existed before they actually sailed the ocean blue. Columbus came here and found whatever. That's another controversy. I'm not going to get into that. But the bottom line was people used to go there after their pilgrimage, burn their clothes, and give everything, all the heaviness of their life, on to the next, so they could live here in the present and the now. Well, when I looked at the lighthouse at the end at Finisterre, that's the lighthouse I saw in the vision near my mother. So I was like, well, I have to get there somehow. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I had a full-time job at the time. I didn't know how, But as time moved forward, 7 years to the day my mother passed away, I was walking El Camino. And I went on this journey to get my message there and to learn a little bit more about myself. And the things I learned, oh my gosh, Meredith, you know, I say the gifts of walking through the transformation. And it goes through the whole metamorphosis of the butterfly. You know, when we go through that mess and we come out the other end and we see how strong we are, and we get to fly instead of crawl on the ground. It's such a gift that life can give you. So the pilgrimage was an amazing experience. I'm still on the pilgrimage. It was kind of like the launching point, and the people I went to. Remember, I'm a connector. I love being with people, so I had to go with people, of course, and they just showed up. I put the big ask out there, and they showed up in my world. It was wonderful.
Meg, it seems to me that everything you need in your life shows up. And what I feel is it has to do with your desire to help others. So we just have a little drop left of time. And so my question to you is what, when people do come to you and you coach, you have seminars, you have classes, you've written books, and as I said, Butterfly Awakens. What else? Did I miss something? I know you're doing so much. You were even actually before this, I think you were on Oprah, or you were with Oprah on the stage as part of a program.
That was amazing. Yes.
She connected with you. And so what do you say to people who are just saying, look, I'm in trouble. You know, I'm like totally depressed. I've, had a loss in my life. I can't live anymore. I don't even want to live anymore. What's your initial advice to people?
It's okay. It's okay. I think that when we put that pressure on ourselves to be okay, not to just accept and surrender to the moment that we're experiencing, it becomes this need to move past where we are already into the next, into that wonder and joy, without really looking at those emotions that need to move through us before we can move on. And one of the things, a lot of people are really type A personalities, and it has to be on their, on their calendar, on their schedule. And the reality is when you go through something in your life that brings on that kind of sadness, one of the most important things that I want everyone to hear is there is always still hope. And just, you have to be gentle with yourself. And I think that the more people who, embrace what is, surrender to what is, and ask about the gifts of what is, the gifts that are there, the more easily you'll be able to step into a new direction for your life. Because, the shoulds, when you should on yourself, it's terrible, right? You don't want to should on yourself. But the reality is maybe your life is pulling to you, like Meredith said, in a different direction. And maybe you just need to ask for help, at least to find someone that you trust, for that sacred space to be heard, to be held, to be loved exactly where you are, how you are in that moment. And I think that the healing can begin at that point in time.
Well, Meg, it's been wonderful to get to interview you. I think we could go on for hours. I love hearing you speak. Your book is pretty amazing, very amazing. It's your story, but as I said earlier, it's the way you write from the heart, and it's like you just get pulled into your story, and it's about hope, and it's about success. You go through terrible things, but you can come out of it. And that's what I'm taking from you, is keep moving, keep going forward, and never, ever give up. And I know that your mom was right there behind you through this whole journey, not allowing you to ever give up on yourself. And I think she must have known how successful you were going to be, and how you were going to help so many people with your books and all of your other programs. I think you're maybe one of the world's busiest self-help authors and inspirational speakers when I looked at your website.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure getting to meet you. Thank you so much.
Meredith, before I go, I just want to say one thing. One of the greatest words you can ever say to another person is, I am so proud of you and I believe in you. And I think that I will say that to you, Meredith. I'm so proud of the fact that what you're doing in this world, what you're bringing into this world, and I believe in your message and your mission as well as anyone else who's out there. Really, truly, it's important. You're important. You are all so special, and we need you in this world. So thank you again, Meredith. Thank you all for being here, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much. And I hope you'll come join us again
I
sometime
would love
soon.
to. Thank you.
Yeah. And I also do want to thank Mita Saxena from the Brahma Kumaris Meditation Center. I know she takes in all of these interviews and programs that we do, but she's always here to help and to make sure that everything goes okay. And it always does go well because of Mita. So thank you for that. And thank you. See you again soon.